Second thing on the agenda is an update on capital projects.
So it's here. We've put millions through the years in the parking garage, and it's still falling apart. And it has a useful life of about 3 more years, according to engineers, which is about 15 years beyond the useful life of it that a previous engineer had declared. It needs to be replaced. It needs to be replaced for purposes of personal safety. I do not want anybody to get injured in there. It needs to be replaced because we have hundreds of thousands of dollars of county property housed in that parking garage. It's time. So we have begun the process of making a plan for you so that we can move beyond that structure that, in my view, is already outdated. And as you know, we've put hundreds of thousands of dollars into it to make it as safe as we can now. But at some point, those diminishing returns will be overwhelmed, and it will just no longer be serviceable. As we've been talking a lot about recently, elections needs more space. Elections needs more space for purposes of transparency. So more people at one time can see what's going on in the elections process. Additionally, right now, elections on election day and the days leading up to it are conducted in about 4 different rooms in this building that aren't necessarily adequate to the functions of the elections office, and specifically to the functions of a 21st century elections office that has to put on essentially 2 separate elections each cycle within the same election period. We need more space for elections, that's a fact. Human Services has outgrown its building. We need to get the Department of Community and Economic Development out of the Human Services building, and we need to get the Juvenile Probation Office out of there and back down to the Easton campus so that the Human Services building can grow as it appropriately should with Human Services employees. The Controller's office is out of date. We can't even bring it up to ADA compliance. It's too costly, and the engineering, and Mike can talk more about it, required is really beyond the point of saving the Controller's office. We need to bring the Controller across the street. The district attorney is out of space. They're busting at the seams down there. As a matter of fact, the previous district attorney, when he had first taken office, he had had a meeting with me, and he said he wanted his own building. And that was 4 years ago. And it was because they're out of space and they're busting at the seams. So we have come up with a plan that we are going to begin presenting to council tonight to demonstrate how we're going to deal with all of these problems so that for the rest of the 21st century, no other county council, no other county executive will have to deal with our space problems in Northampton County. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike.
All right. So just wanted to start off with providing a little bit of history of the existing parking deck that we have. So it was constructed back in 1975, and at the time it was estimated to have a service life of about 35 to 40 years. It has about 298 spots if you include the surface parking lot directly off of Washington Street. So an investigation was done of the parking deck back in 2007 and concluded at the time that the county should immediately pursue design and construction of a new parking deck. Here we are 17 years later. Over the years, we've had significant repair and rehabilitation projects back in 2010, 2016, as well as the one just completed last year, in which we spent $1.3 million trying to keep this deck going. And we're still having issues with pieces of concrete falling, and prior to this last project, water seeping through joints and cracks, picks up the various minerals in the concrete as it travels through the deck. It goes on cars and it leaves nasty stains. So I brought with me tonight just this is a piece of a piece. It was much larger that fell within the last year or two. I don't know. So So, I mean, it's something that really worries myself and the county executive is the safety of our employees that park in the deck and traverse through there. Because obviously we don't want a piece like this going anywhere near a pedestrian. And the project that was completed last year, I mean, that was primarily a waterproofing type of project to help, keep water from getting into the deck and speeding up the deterioration of it. So we're planning on those upgrades only serving us for about 3 years or so. Just wanted to provide some pictures of the work that was done. So these are some before photos showing just how badly the existing traffic deck membrane had deteriorated, specifically on the ramps. So what we did with this project, any areas that were in really poor shape, we could just completely remove the concrete and poured new concrete and then applied a new membrane specifically to the ramps, just because those are areas where traction is the most important. Here's some before photos of the water that was infiltrating through various joints and cracks in the asphalt and the decking. You can see the staining on that beam as it corrodes the bar reinforcement inside of there. And these are the repairs that were made last year to help seal up those joints. The photo on the right shows a crack that was injected with epoxy to help stop that water from infiltrating through.
So we're holding the garage together with glue.
High quality sealant, but it will only last about 3 years. So as the executive alluded to, we started trying to come up with a plan for this. So last year, we were working with USA Architects to develop a conceptual plan for what a new parking deck as well as a new office building would look like on the existing site to try to help solve the two largest issues that we're currently facing in one project. So this is just a rendering that shows a 3-story office building. It's a little over 31,000 square feet and a new parking deck behind it. The parking deck would be 346 spaces, so it's almost 50 more than we have currently, which should serve us well into the future. And the existing circulation paths with the driveway that we have over on the west side to access the prison gates, as well as the access road between the parking deck and the prison, we would be maintaining those and potentially expanding them to accommodate two-way traffic as needed for the site. So part of the exercise that the architect did was to develop blocking diagrams just to determine how much space the departments that we have housed currently are occupying and how much space they would need in the new building. So these are not intended to be floor plans by any means. It's really just to show how much space would be dedicated to each department and mechanical space, toilets, elevators on each particular floor. So our thought would be that the first floor of the new building would be dedicated solely to elections. Right now, they have their main office is on the lower level. They have an additional office on the first floor here. The actual vote counting is done in the cafeteria. It's not an ideal situation. So under this proposed plan, they would all be housed on the first floor of the new building. There's a large conference room with partitionable flex space that could be used not only for the election, but for any kind of larger conferences that the county might be hosting.
Excuse me, Mike, would that be where they would do the canvassing then eventually?
Yes.
Thank you.
And it's much more convenient too, because the cafeteria is basically the most distant point that you can possibly get to in our existing government center here. So this would greatly expedite that process.
Chair?
Yeah, sure.
It's part of what he's doing now. Based on what you just said, I think it's a great idea, the large conference room, it's one thing. It's a large conference room, multi-use. Would it be set up though with the, so that, let's say sometimes we get some hot button issues and we pack courtroom number 1 or something, and that's not a very good place to have meetings. So much like Lehigh County, we could use this for a overflow council meeting if it became
What's the square footage of this room like?
2,000?
No, this one.
This
Oh,
one,
I don't know that off the top of my head.
it's going to be larger than this, right? 2,000. 2,000.
Yeah, this would definitely be less than 2,000.
Yeah, and I think you could, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I just think multi-purpose. I'm thinking, we go to courtroom number one, and it's, might be great for a judge, but for having our meetings, it's not very good. So I was just curious. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
go ahead.
Was there any more questions on the first floor before I continue? So the second floor, we would envision moving the entire fiscal affairs department out of the government center and over here. This would then free up almost the entirety of the existing second floor and the annex here. I believe the only department that would be remaining would be GIS. So then that space could potentially be used for expansion of the DA's office, bringing in, moving the controller's department over here eventually. It would allow a lot of flexibility for us.
Questions on the second floor, or first floor, or whatever that is?
Moving on then. The third floor would then house several different departments that are currently in the government center, as well as bringing community and economic development over here, which would obviously free up a good chunk of room in the human services building for departments that are actually related to human services. And here is just a schematic of what the concept for the new parking garage would look like. It would be a 3-tiered garage with one at ground level, a second story, and then a basement level that's essentially at the same grade that the existing deck is currently on. We would maintain a access from the west side where the existing access road is. And then there'd also be a secondary exit on the north side by the prison. And this would allow us for 346 spaces. Again, that's nearly 50 more than what we currently have. And it's the proposed building is shown in the red layout right there. So there would be a connected stair tower and elevator between for direct access between the garage and the new building.
Then we would use the little, what I call the alley between the courthouse and to get in, to make the right.
Yes.
And that would be widened in this plan, I guess?
We haven't got to that level of detail yet. This was strictly just a conceptual plan, but it would likely be
And
widened.
then the other out would be my favorite exit down there by the prison, by the loading docks.
Yes.
Okay. That's how I always drove straight out.
I'm amazed at how parking decks over the course of decades and decades have held up. But I think from a public safety standpoint, in terms of what you just held up, holy cow, if that were to hit a resident of this county or anybody else, even outside of this county, what that would mean for lawsuits and what a mess that would
Absolutely.
be. When I was on Easton City Council, I remember the 3rd Street Garage, and Public Works Director Dave Hopkins talking to us about it, saying, we're doing patchwork. We're keeping it together with glue, like you were just saying, Mr. Kraft.
We are putting glue on it.
Yeah, and it got to the point where these things need to come down after a period of time. There's only so much you can do. So, yeah, garages don't last forever. So,
Yes.
So then what happens to the existing spaces that are left, that are vacated by these other entities on this building?
The office spaces you're talking about? Well, that's where we would potentially envision moving the controller's department into this building and just entirely eventually getting rid of what is the current controller's building. Community and economic development would move here, and then their existing office space would just be taken over by human services.
And Human Services is out of space, you said, because they have community and economic development. What else is there?
Juvenile probation.
Juvenile probation is all the way over there? I thought that was here.
Just a portion of it,
Just
just a portion.
because they're out of room, I guess, too, so they split it into two places?
It's gotten to the point at Human Services where we've taken a lot of storage closets and converted them into office space over the years. I mean, there's no more room for any additional office space in that building.
Because I was on a committee when we built the Human Services building. It's amazing that it's but I know we grow, population grows, everything grows, but it's just, thinking that's out of space, it's, I mean, I can believe it, but I didn't know you were putting everybody else in there besides just Human Services. Is there any more for the deck and?
That's it.
concept? That's it?
Oh.
Any other questions?
This area here, our space where we're at, the council's going to stay where it's at, if I recall. And what about the offices that are emptied in here? There'll be some space. I forget what that would be. Just
the-
sort of for future probable situations or something like that?
Sure.
The one, look, we're way premature in who goes where, because
Yeah.
we'll have to talk with the courts, and we'll have to talk with the DA
Yeah.
and the controller about, what space they might need at the time. I think it's ideal to have the controller's office up here. When human resources and the administration move out, it would be almost a perfect space for them up here. And then it gives them access to the entire building where they're walking across the street now to come and do their work. They'll be right here, just go downstairs and they're here. So that's what I envision, but it may not be my call. But that I think would be a perfect fit.
All right, yeah, I was just curious, because I know the courts over the years, as well as I do, there was always these ideas pitched about the courts would take over this building.
Well, they wanted to build an L on that. That's designed to go out in the grassy area, right?
So, yeah, but we concluded that wasn't feasible.
They always want more.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. And so we think that there'll be plenty of room for everybody to expand for the rest of the century here.
Yeah, and I mean, you were on council, I think.
Right.
That was the time when Mr. Stofa was pitching the building.
Right.
And there were some included who said, the city is our county seat. Why aren't we building in the city, and I know the argument was made that they deserve their own space and all that. But I'm glad to see that we are using our footprint. And I think that, Easton is the county seat, and I'm glad that if we do expand, it's in Easton. I mean, it's where we should be.
Yeah, we should all be together.
Sal will be happy. You bring more employees back. There's more for his pension fund.
That's not on the agenda, Mr. Kraft.
Could we
That's gonna
just
be a-
switch back to
It's
the
a sore
last
subject.
slide?
That's an
Yeah.
apology.
She wants to go back one.
All right. Anything else about the parking?
So you would be
deck/office?
moving your offices over there then?
we would all go over.
So you're going to have to go out in the rain to go visit.
No, you park
Oh,
in
you're
the
gonna
garage, you
come
go up
under
the
the
elevator.
Yeah, we're gonna come under.
Oh, you're going to have it hooked.
We won't need an umbrella.
Oh, I
There'll
didn't,
be a
I
breezeway, right?
misunderstood.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a breezeway.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
Well, that's like Lehigh County has with their parking deck. They have a breezeway. All right.
So there's, how many floors? 3?
Great.
Who's on the second, finance?
Fiscal, yep.
Any possibility of putting a fourth that's empty with nothing in it, so you can build it, and then like we didn't do at the prison, which we really could have used
I-
at sometimes?
I'm not sure Easton's code would permit that, and I don't think it's our view is we won't need any more space for the rest of the century.
Oh, well, that's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a few years.
Well, no, so it is true that we are a labor-intensive government, but that's becoming less true every year. And, with the advances in technology, we need less people than we used to need. We're not running, and a lot of this is Graysdale now, but we're not running anywhere near where we were running pre-pandemic. We're like, 17, 1,800, depending on, the given day, full and part-time. It's not, do you foresee any time when we'll need more people? I mean, I think technology is only going to cause us to need less.
Okay, I just like the idea of, when we went up in the prison, we stopped it. It can go up further,
Yeah.
but now you can't You can't go up any further, because imagine putting a crane in Center Easton and building it up higher.
Why, they're
So-
doing it right down the street. You can do
Well,
it.
yeah, but we won't do
It
it.
can be done.
Yeah, all right.
No, we're not gonna just build another level.
Any
And not
other
use it.
questions for the parking deck, Mr. Giovanni?
The top level, are we gonna cover that, or do that
Of the deck?
We had discussed potentially covering it or putting solar panels above it to add a green aspect to the project, but it's still too preliminary to say what would be done. Yeah, it would definitely make life a lot easier in the winter with snow.
Hey, don't get any more sunburn.
Stop it.
All right. Anything else?
Okay, that's it for, no more questions for the parking deck / office. Next is elevator modernization.
Okay, so this one's been on the agenda for quite some time due to very extensive supply chain delays with the drives and cables that are required for the project. But TK Elevators finally received the equipment that they need to get started. And this is for the modernization of elevators 2 and 3 here in the annex right outside the hall. The work is expected to start later this month. It consists of replacing the controllers, the door equipment, interior panels, the fixtures, the wiring, and we'll also be upgrading the electrical and fire alarms to make them compliant with current codes.
And we won't get phone calls in the prison that somebody's trapped in the elevator anymore.
That's what the new system is for over there.
Perfect. Any questions on the elevators? None? Go ahead, bud.
The chilled water pipe installation, we've been having issues over the years with the piping that's in the basement ceiling in the historic section. Over the summer, when you have the cold water running through these pipes in a warmer space, the pipes would sweat and they would drip onto the ceiling tiles. We had the pipes tested for the thickness just to ensure that they were still in good condition, which they were. So we only needed to replace the insulation on that. So that project was completed earlier this year by Leibold Mechanical, and it should resolve the issues with the condensation and the stain tiles down there.
Perfect. Questions? None? Juvenile Justice Center generator replacement.
Albarell Electric has completed the installation of the new 400 kilowatt generator for the Juvenile Justice Center. It's been tested and is running as designed. This is another one that was delayed heavily due to supply chain issues, but we're happy to have this one up and running now.
No questions? Next.
The compressor replacement at the Juvenile Justice Center, we had to order a new air compressor system for the air locks. So we ordered this late last year. The existing compressor was obsolete, and if that part were to fail, they would only be able to manually unlock all of the doors in the facility with keys, which would be a gigantic headache. So we wanted to be proactive with it and replace the compressor before it completely failed. So we ordered the parts, and our O&M department finished the installation earlier this year.
Okay, moving along. B, Graysdale.
So the generator replacement there, this is the same contract with Albarell Electric. Once they finished up the work at the Juvenile Justice Center, they headed over to Graysdale to start there. They're currently working on the new concrete pad for the generator, and this project should be wrapped up this spring.
And daycare?
We completed the construction work on the interior of the building back in January. So the only thing left for us to complete right now is the outdoor play areas. Our Parks Division is currently working on that. There's a whole lot of safety regulations that we need to meet for the certification process that goes into a daycare. So it's a little different than your typical playground, but Parks is nearly wrapped up with that one.
Question. Do you have a time frame? I mean, from your end, on as far as this being finished? I know staffing and other, it's a whole other area, but just from your end, building-wise.
The construction should be wrapped up later this month, and then I think at that point, we can apply with the state to bring the inspector in to certify it for use.
Thank you.
Any other questions about the daycare? Seeing none, boiler house, blow down, rerouting.
So Elliott Lewis has completed the installation of the new blow-down tank for the boilers over there, as well as new pumps and piping to redirect the discharge into the sanitary sewer system.
All right, real quick.
Go ahead.
I don't know.
You want to know what blow down?
I want to know what blow down. I have no idea what that is.
Really?
So
I don't.
as the boilers operate,
I wouldn't either.
the water inside of them starts to get contaminated with the various minerals that are in the water and the softeners that we add. And you have to discharge them and completely drain those tanks before there gets to be too much contamination in the water for them to operate properly. So when you do the blowdown, the tank completely drains. It gets routed into this new blowdown tank that we installed, where there's, because the water is obviously very hot as it's leaving the boiler. So there's a standing level of water inside this blowdown tank. The hot water comes in, hits the room temperature water. It instantly cools off. And at that point, it can get pumped and discharged into the sewer system.
Just like your hot water heater that gets filled with sediment, if you
Yeah.
don't drain it once a year.
All right, thank
But
you.
it's much more.
I have to laugh, because if I had a nickel for every time the boiler came up in Graysdale over the
Oh,
years.
remember that? Yeah, that's crazy.
I have a lot of money.
All right, prison L-tier renovation.
So this project entails renovating an existing dormitory area within the L tier to make it suitable for housing juvenile inmates that can't be housed at our juvenile justice center. So the proposed work will include replacing the existing drop ceiling with a hard drywall ceiling, replacing the flooring, installing new doors, new bathroom fixtures. All the design work was completed by USA Architects, and the bids are due tomorrow.
For those of you who don't know, juveniles who get put into an adult facility can't be in line of sight, they can't be heard, you can't hear the prisoners, and it's a very big problem. Because like, we'll get kids, like a couple years back, they robbed a 7-Eleven and did whatever, and they ended up over there in our prison, and you have to keep them separate. And in the present way it is now, I haven't seen this particular plan, but the way it is now, you can't. You have to like clear a whole floor to have a kid there. So this will help a lot. Glad to see you're doing it. So, any questions on the renovation for kids?
Is there an age limit on that? Like I hear,
18, anything below 18. You come in 17.9 years old, you're a juvenile, you have to be protected from adults, and it's a big to-do.
It's PREA, and I understand you had juvenile justice in earlier. That's the statute, PREA. It's an acronym. And juvenile justice doesn't believe that it can deal with dangerous juvenile
no,
offenders.
it's a perfect segue, because we did just address that. I just wanted,
Yeah,
Yep.
prison rape,
Yep. So they go to court and they say that we can't, at the Juvenile Justice Center, we can't handle these juvenile offenders who are accused of these serious crimes. So take them to the prison. And unfortunately, the way our prison is currently configured, we're not in compliance with PREA. L-tiers renovations will put us in compliance with PREA.
it's great to know.
Will that be I hear what you're saying. Will that be a single cell situation per
They have
kid?
to be separate, because if you get females and males, it has to be that they
Yeah.
can't line
Yeah.
of sight,
So
sound.
be one
It's-
person per
it's-
cell.
It's like they're not there.
it's
That's
tough.
how you have to.
I hear you. I
It's a
just,
tough thing, PREA.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
Okay.
Elimination Act.
I have a question, Ken, just
Go ahead.
regarding the prison, but not, do we still have access to the West Easton Center? Or are we no longer utilizing that facility?
No, we still have it. Currently, it is not in use because we don't need it. The criminal justice system goes in cycles. And right now, we're in a cycle where they're not putting anybody in prison. I expect that, that cycle will one day change. And crime rates are low. Crime rates are very low, despite, what you might hear on the news. Crime rates are very low. And so our census is relatively speaking, low compared to what it has been historically. So we don't need West Easton right now. We can house all of our work release eligible offenders next door. But I think it's a wise hedge for us to keep the West Easton facility because of this cycle that I'm describing. And instead of, getting put in a position where we'd need to build a $750 million prison,
Right.
we just reopen West Easton.
Yeah, and the facilities used by training for all the the camps we have, they all use the West Easton facility for training, and other people use other departments use that for training.
Yes, lots of training goes on
The
there.
How
buildings
big is
used,
that and how many people are?
100
yeah,
people, and it was filled.
yes.
Pre-pandemic, they were putting everybody in jail.
Yeah, and pandemic is really why we stopped using it, because there was no way to
It was
social
all work
distance.
release, right?
Yeah.
I have thoughts about it, because, there are not as many criminals as are mentally ill in prison, and there's a lot more mentally ill people coming into the system, so I just wondered if there's any way to utilize some of that for some of these mental.
Well,
health
so that's
services,
why we
or
rent.
some of these juvenile, like all this competency stuff, because I know it took us so long to be able to even get this competency center open and operational, so just wondered if we still had access.
That's
to it.
that's part of the reason why we renovated D-tier next door, so that we could put folks with severe mental illness somewhere where they could move about, because as you know, people with schizophrenia need to move.
Right.
Yeah.
They can't be stuck in a cell.
Well, thank you for
you.
that digression. I appreciate the answer.
All right, Parks and Rec, unless there's any other questions about the wonderful world of prisons?
Only
Parks
for
and
you, Ken.
Recreations?
The new Louise Moore Park Maintenance Garage, council had approved these contracts at the tail end of last year. Everything has been squared away with Blue Scope Construction with the contracts. We had a pre-construction meeting last month with their contractor, Gorski Engineering. They're in the process of ordering the materials that they need, and they'll be starting construction on that project late spring, early summer.
That's good. Questions on that one? You guys just voted
That's
that
the
in.
pole barn, right?
Not a pole barn, steel frame building. It started as a pole barn, and it's since gotten better.
What is a Y-hit tuck park bathroom replacement? I'm not
So.
saying that right, that's like an old Indian name or what?
Yep, so Wyatt Park, it's off 611 down in Williams Township. We issued an RFP earlier this year for engineering services related to the bathroom replacement as well as ADA access upgrades to get from the parking lot to the new bathroom, as well as the new pavilion that was just completed last year. And maybe like less than a quarter mile south of there is the connection to the DNL Trail. This project would also make sure that that connection is accessible.
I think that's where Mr. Kusick spends his retirement.
Oh, okay.
He'd always
All
bring
right.
up
His
the
dog.
Wahittuck.
The Y-hit Park. Questions on the
Fries, right?
bathroom?
Oh.
Bathroom? Mr. Kapura?
When will this project start?
The engineering work is currently in progress. They completed the surveying last week. So construction, we're probably looking at maybe early next year at this point.
Thank you.
Any other? All right, bridges, our favorite thing, Meadows Road, Lower Saucon Township.
My baby.
Yeah, so the two contracts that I discussed previously at the Finance Committee meeting with Kinsley Construction, they were the low bidder through PennDOT's ECMS system. PennDOT plans to issue the notice to proceed to Kinsley Construction fairly shortly. The Lower Saucon Authority is currently on site relocating their water and sewer mains that would be in conflict with the bridge project. They're expecting to get that work completed by the end of May.
And then bridge construction will start, I mean, the bridge is out, right? They took that out. a long
Yeah,
time
it
ago.
was completely removed about 2 years ago.
Any questions on our Lower Saucon Meadows
We
Bridge?
still
sir?
getting people screaming about,
No, it's gone. The manhole covers are gone.
no, they wanted the bridge historically recreated.
I think they lost that battle.
I think they've come to terms with,
Oh, really? Put me in, I've got to find out how anybody comes to terms with their passionate concerns.
Well,
of
I
this
think it was the last big hole and collapse, probably.
That put it, yeah.
And I don't think it would ever it was ever gonna be able to be recreated as such, so.
Well, it was one lane. This is
Yeah.
going to be two lane now.
I
Yeah.
don't think- I think
Traffic.
they waited them out, like our P3 project did. They waited them all out. Next bridge, 74, Douglasville.
So this was the other contract that was discussed at Finance. 2 bids were received, professional construction contractors was the lowest. Assuming the contract is passed tomorrow, we'd be looking to start construction around June with an approximate duration of 5 months.
Right?
Yep.
5 months.
It's just a superstructure replacement, it's not a complete replacement.
And then our glorious P3 project update.
So there's only 2 bridges left at this point. This is the final year of construction. One of those, Bridge 124, is on Willowbrook Road in Allen Township. The city of Bethlehem and UGI, they had pretty extensive utility relocation work to complete before we could get started. Both of them are now finished with their work. The aerial utility relocations are mostly completed. Krieger is expected to start construction of the bridge in early May and be completed in the fall.
And then 101,
This is Hanoverville Road in Lower Nazareth. The conceptual design plans for the rehabilitation work have been approved by the GPA's third-party engineer. Norfolk Southern has been reviewing the plans since they have a rail line in close proximity to the bridge. And the work on that one is expected to begin in June and be completed in the fall.
now, that one, they're just doing what to? Just another underneath, or what's happening to that bridge exactly?
It's a rehabilitation, so the main component of it is they put in the arch liners made of like a corrugated steel, and then grout between the liner and the existing
And
arch of the
existing
bridge.
And then they pave over it.
It won't, I don't think it will be, no, there will be some paving, that's
So it'll look
correct.
the same, except better.
It'll look mostly the same, yeah.
All right. Any questions on any of the P3 projects?
I was
that we're
just trying to
done with?
place,
Have we discussed our anticlimactic celebration of when it's all over?
Oh, we're gonna have a party.
I was just trying to place that 101 bridge.
It's right next to my
Oh,
pond.
Oh, that's where it is?
You know
Okay.
where the big smokestacks are for the old
Yeah.
cement plant?
I forgot the, okay.
Right there.
Thank you.
Right there. Goes right into a residential neighborhood. Any other questions for Mike?
No, thank you.
Seeing none. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank God.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, yeah, that's right, tonight. They'll, I don't know, you know what, the Philly teams, they drive me crazy every year.